.NETers, what's up? What's happening? I can't tell you how pumped I am about being here talking about things. Kelsey's talk was awesome. And to tell you the truth, I just want to extend everything that he said in my point of view. We're going to go on a little journey here for a few minutes. We're going to talk about microservices, right? That's where I'm all here. But we're going to talk about Steeltoe as well, and why Steeltoe is going to make your life with microservices unbelievably easy. To do that, we got to agree on a few things, though, as we go along here, right? Your microservices are going to the cloud. And I think I've just offended Kelsey by my first slide by saying all this, having watched his points of view. But you're going to the cloud at some point, right? Maybe private cloud, maybe public cloud, whatever. Well, along the way, there's going to be a short list of things that every single microservice is going to have to do. Things like logs. Every microservice has got a log. You've watched these other talks this morning. Everybody's talking about it. But IIS logs, event store, to local disk ain't going to work for this. Now we're talking about streaming logs. That's the fancy way of saying it. You're writing to console, right? And then your platform that you're running on, whether that's Azure App Services, Cloud Foundry, any public cloud, Kubernetes, what have you, Docker, that platform is going to grab those logs and forward them onto an aggregator. Metrics. You may not be doing anything right now. You may be doing IIS or something like that. Again, ain't going to work when you go up there. Now we want something like a simple endpoint that presents the metrics about your application on some interval, and you let something scrape that endpoint and check things out. Health. This is absolutely number one. I mean, for me, probably above logs, right? Your application has to report its health to its platform. But health is not just, hey, I'm here, good, 200, right? Health is, my database is here, my dependent services are available, right? Health is a pretty involved check for making sure. Your response back ultimately is one single response as a 200. That's how you report health. And then your environment and instance info, right? You may be using IIS, you may just be manually writing everything in, I don't know, web.config or something like that. But you're going to the cloud, which means you're going to need tools around you because you're not going to have near the visibility of your application as if it's running on some VM that you can RDP into or something like that. A lot of this is going to go away for you, so you got to adapt. And so you need to know what environment am I going in? What environment variables have been exposed to my application? What version of my application am I running at right now? How many instances am I running? Got to know these things. Oh, and then there's backing services, right? This one gets even more fun because first you have to deal with the connection to your backing service, right? That's the first thing. That's maybe the easy part, as Kelsey was showing, right? Either connect or I don't, and I fail out. That ain't going to work. You need to be highly available. Really, your services ideally would be highly available, right? Your application's running multiple instances. That's good. It's sessionless. That's good. But you have multiple instances maybe of your backing service, which now kind of complicates things for how your application decides to connect to that backing service. What happens when that service or your app moves to a different zone or a different data center, right? If you're doing disaster recovery and things like that, what's going to happen there? Is it just like, well, I got to flip the switch off, move everything over, flip the switch back on? And we all know that ain't going to work. And then a resilience to change, right? And so this, if you want to be super cool, you're going to use circuit breakers for this. But circuit breakers are not easy to implement. I will be the first to be honest about that. But that's what you're thinking about is I'm going to write my code assuming that this service isn't going to be there, but my app will be. What do I do? How do I design that? So that's the basics, right? We can continue on. If you want to become a rock star, you ain't going to be a rock star overnight, right? But as you go along here, you're going to get better and better at this. More microservices, learning how to deploy, learning about pipelines and automation, and just putting all the pieces together, getting the most out of it. So when you become a rock star, at least in my opinion, you're doing things like external configuration. My application, appsettings.json, really only holds like 1 or 2 values, and basically they're to how to get my application to an external config server to retrieve all the good stuff out of there, connection strings, business values, what have you, out of there. Circuit breakers, we kind of touched on that. Authentication, maybe even some authorization in there, building all that in. Discovering services, right? I don't remember all of the URIs of all the different services that I'm supposed to connect to. And by the way, those URIs are probably going to change. What am I going to do about that? I use service discovery as a phone book. So all I look up is the name of the service. And then the phone book gives me the actual URI back. And then I go connect to it. And then if you're going to be the uber cool kid on the block, you're going to go to message buses, right? And then you're going to say, all I'm doing is, instead of calling another microservice, I'm going to write to a message bus, and somebody else is subscribed to the same topic that I wrote to, and they're going to get the message off of there. And you get into events and all this super cool stuff. That's why you're a cloud native rock star. Yeah, okay. All that is a lot of code, right? I mean, consider this. External configuration, circuit breakers, authentication. Let's go back one more. Connection to my database, being highly available, resilient to change. As Kelsey was saying, this is all stuff that you should not be dealing with. This is all code. You haven't written any business logic. You haven't done anything for your actual job yet. You've just written all this stuff to manage all this. Meet Steeltoe. Steeltoe is here to help you with this stuff. Steeltoe is here to take all this kind of cloud expectation, these boilerplate things, take them off your shoulders, take that debt away from you. And I'm going to use Steeltoe components to do this. And it takes it down to attributes and one-liners, right? Very, very simple things. That's how you implement it with one-liner. Put some configuration in your app settings or go with the defaults, right? Steeltoe knows how to talk cloud. It was created in 2015. It's been around for a while. That's all I'm wanting to say, because I keep running into open source projects that have been around for a week or two. It's open source 100%. The .NET Foundation owns it. It was donated in 2017 to the foundation. It has no real, commercial purpose or anything like that. This is for the community. This is for writing better .NET microservices. We know what a microservice is supposed to look like, so we can do some purpose-built features in both framework and core. Steeltoe got its start before core was even a thing, or at least publicly was really a thing. So Steeltoe is here to help you with your microservices. This is a common one for me. No, we're not trying to replace .NET. .NET is flippin' awesome. The .NET runtime, specifically ASP.NET, is freaking awesome. As Kelsey learned, .NET New Web API. How awesome is that? No, we're not trying to replace it. It's just the .NET runtime has to be a lot to a lot of people. And so they have to account for a lot of different scenarios, console apps, ASP.NET, other things. Maui's coming out, and Blazor's there to help out with all these things going on. So specifically, you can put a lot of opinion. If I'm only going to microservices and I'm only going to run a cloud platform, so I'm probably going to be containerized, once I get up to the platform, we know a lot about what's going on. And so Steeltoe's here to say, you know what, I'm going to extend all the goodness of .NET and put a whole bunch of opinion around that, because I know exactly how you should be running in the cloud. And let's take away all that overhead that you might have to take on going to microservices. Code for the business, not the platform. If I can tell you one thing today, if you're just getting into microservices, if you've kind of dipped your toes in microservices, and now you're really getting into it, you're in the middle of writing a project, if you're spending a lot of time writing code to manage your infrastructure, so that's like, I'm not talking about, entity framework stuff, right? Your data schema is specific to your application. I'm talking about managing your database connection, a connection to a message server, a cache server, those kinds of things. If you're spending a bunch of time writing all that code, in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. You need some helpers around you. You need some things added in to help you. You need to be writing code for the business. That's the only way the business is going to grow. And I bet you anything that's the only way you're going to be happy is by writing, some logic, really creating the real applications. Okay, I'm going to take a break for a minute. That was a lot. And we're going to switch over to the mandatory Visual Studio. This is a .NET Conf, by the way. All I want to do here, I'm not going to get super in depth. All I want to do is kind of show you the beginnings of what a Steeltoe application might look like and why Steeltoe, I'm just so emphatic about it. Just to show you that I'm not holding anything under my sleeves or have any black box, going anywhere, rigging anything up. I'm going to do this straight up as a new application, right? Can't hide much here. We're going to create that. Because I don't want to be asked about a self-signed certificate, so I'm going to turn off HTTPS. Okay, here we go. Straight up application. Don't really need to get too far into that. First thing, we're going to go to NuGet, and we're going to look for Steeltoe. We need to browse. Okay. So I'm going to bring in, there's a lot of packages. Go to steeltoe.io. You're going to see a lot. There's a heck of a lot of components that the team has made. I'm going to bring in what I consider kind of the bare minimum here. I need a health check. I don't want to build that. I need to emit some amount of information about my application. I don't want to build that. I need to stream logs. I want to also get into distributed tracing. So whenever I write a log message, I want the span ID and the trace ID on that message because I need some context here about what's going on. Remember, when you moved up to a container, when you go to the cloud, you have very little visibility. So your debugging skills are going to have to adapt and learn new ways of doing things. So let's go for, we're going to go for endpoint core. First, I'm going to cheat and copy and paste here. So we'll bring endpoint core package in. We're going to bring, yes, we need to do that. We're going to bring the dynamic logger package in. Again, if you don't know what this stuff is, it's all good. Steeltoe.io is going to teach you, show you everything about what's going on. And there's documentation to your heart's content over there. And we're going to bring in tracing core as well. All right, I brought in those three packages, pretty basic stuff. I'm going to go in program CS. All right, and if by some miracle, Kelsey's watching right now, I hope this is going to put a smile on his face because all we're going to do is put in 3 one-liners. That's it. I now have a health actuator endpoint, an info endpoint, and I've put in streaming logs using the console. And I have some pretty structured way of doing logging now. That's it. That's the idea here with Steeltoe. Give the developer a very quick, simple way to get something done so they can get past the boilerplate stuff. If I wanted to go beyond this and I wanted to start filling this stuff up with, all kinds of rules and, all kinds of different authorizations and everything, I can. There's configuration to no end, and you're going to stick it in app settings and everything's going to be good. But I'm going basic here because I just want to stick to what we're doing. We're running locally anyway. Then over here, I want to add distributed tracing. Done. Let's pull in the package. Okay. This now will create spans and traces. It will use a project called OpenTelemetry, and all the opinions of OpenTelemetry have been brought into Steeltoe. That's an active thing. It will take the opinions of OpenTelemetry, and it's distributed tracing about creating spans and traces and such, and it will use that. It will watch everything coming in and out of the application, and it will use that for logging. It will also begin to do everything in a compliant way for other systems to watch those spans and traces and take them and do other things. So like Zipkin, right? Zipkin's a very popular way to do tracing. And it's really, it's not a protocol, but it's more of a way to structure your spans and traces and make them available to others. Anyway, Steeltoe is going to take care of all that for you. That's what I'm getting at here. You've got the Zipkin compatibility and you didn't even do anything for it. All right, let's F5 that bad boy. And we're going to see our weather forecast app came up. Good job. Let's see, did we write logs? We did not. Let's go back and write a log. Let's just make sure our application's running. I'm going to circle back around and we're going to show you some of the good stuff, but I want to bring this in as well. So let's bring logger. Let's do a debug and let's be super nice. Okay. So we'll bring up our weather forecast again. We're going to come back and look at our logs once more. Everything is looking pretty good. All right, so now I'm going to come over here. Oh, we need to get our, yes. In just a minute, I'm going to make a very sweet plug for Project Ty, and I'm feeling the pain right now because I have to go grab port numbers and things like that. So, all right, haven't turned that one on yet. Oh, and I have a bunch of people watching me, so I have to type everything. Okay, now wait, before we look at this, /actuator/health, okay? Let's go back over here real quick. Bear with me for a minute. Do you see a controller anywhere that is called actuator? Health uses that? Let's go in startup. Let me keep myself honest here. No, you see nothing in here for this because you shouldn't spend any time with that kind of stuff. But Steeltoe added that in. And Steeltoe also knows quite a bit about your application, like how much disk is running for right now. That's just an initial one. You can add all kinds of other fun, crazy stuff on here for health, but this one they know about. They're reporting a readiness state. They're reporting a status. They're reporting these different ways of doing this because they're compliant with different platforms. Cloud Foundry, I believe, is looking for a status of up. Kubernetes is looking for a liveliness probe. So it's doing that. All you did was add Steeltoe in. You didn't really choose a platform or anything like that. But they know how to add liveliness things and health check things for the different platforms that you have. We turned on info, didn't we? Look at all this. Again, I never added that endpoint into the application, right? But it dumped out, it knows a lot about what's going on. Now I have a way to query the application and learn about what version am I running right now for this individual instance. What version is going on? What version of Steeltoe packages and things like that am I running? And some other odds and ends in there. That's good. Let's go back and hit the weather forecast again. And we're going to come back in here and have a look at what's going on. My context didn't get bound to it. So we're going to switch that off. And let's change this to information. And we'll run our get again. There we are, nothing too crazy going on there. We'll come over to our application. Cool. So I'm sorry, I can't zoom in here. but I can zoom in here because I want you to see what information was dumped out. All right, there's my hi there log, right? That's what I did. That's what I wrote. But Steeltoe added on there. It came from this application with this span ID and this trace ID, and this is administrative. I can take this, right? And if I'm using some distributed tracing platform, I can now take this and go over and look it up. And like Kelsey was saying, I've got databases behind this. I've got other services behind this, and I need to see the whole trace because I need to see who's the bottleneck and what's going on and the headers between that are getting exchanged between these different requests down the chain. I now have the idea to do that. Now, of course, you'd love to have a platform, a distributed tracing platform already plugged into your platform, so you can just go right over, query on the application name, and so on and so forth. But what I'm getting at here is such little overhead, bringing Steeltoe into your application. Okay, that's it. I'm going to spare you anything else for hands-on. Last thing I'm going to show you, though, this is already pre-written, pre-baked. This application was based on doing a file new web API. I swear there's nothing up my sleeves. I rolled them up just in case. But so you can do like one-liners, all actuators. So that's going to give me a list of a whole bunch of different information about my application. You can add in, like here I have my database context in here. Went a little bit further to add in some more Zipkin stuff with distributed tracing. Added in a hook for a Spring Boot admin server. The endpoint's about the same. Aha! Now I wanted to add a little bit of configuration because I'm using a SQL Server. I'm using it completely software defined, right? I'm using Entity Framework. I have no actual SQL Server. So wherever I'm going to connect to this thing, the database has got to be created. Something's got to be done. My endpoints, so you can actually choose what endpoints are exposed publicly outside your microservice and what's only available on the network of your microservice. And then this is for my Spring Boot admin server. It needs to know how to talk to it, where to come back to, the callback for it, and that sort of thing. So I give it all kinds of configure information. This application needs a SQL Server. It needs a Spring Boot admin. It needs a Zipkin server going. Right? It needs all of these things, these services around it. And so when I'm going to develop this locally, and I'm sorry, Kelsey, but I want to spin all this stuff up locally. I'm going to use Docker for it. But I'm going to use Thai. And Thai just complements a Steeltoe app so well because this is the reality, right? You're going to be connecting to all these services. So I want to try to recreate these things locally. Kelsey's right, though. You're never going to get to the point of production, right, where you just totally recreate production. I get that. But it's pretty darn easy for me to do this if you've got Docker installed. That's a whole other topic. But see what I'm doing here? I'm bringing in Zipkin. I'm bringing in MS SQL. I got to set up my SQL database, set it on the port, the EULA, the SA password, and then I'm spinning up boot admin and turning off security for it. That's all I do. Now, notice this. I have the choice with Thai to either spin up my application right here in another container. And I would want to do that because I need it on the same network as these guys. Because over here, all I said was web application 1. Well, who knows where to route that? Well, in fact, if I'm on the same network in Docker, then it knows how to do that. It'll be my DNS for it. So I need my application there. But I enjoy being able to run my application right out of Visual Studio and then let Thai spin up all this other stuff around it, manage all the ports and do all that stuff. Okay, that's it for my demo. We're going to head back over to the slides now. Hopefully I have either enraged a bunch of you or you have some good questions. Either way, I look forward to it. So my final is the shameless plug. Of course, I got to do it. Steeltoe.io, learn more, right? Steeltoe, man, I just barely touched the surface there. That was just the beginning of it. You've got service discovery, external configuration. You've got service connectors to databases and caches. They've built so much of this project out, these libraries out to help you get away from the boilerplate code and start writing business logic. Thank you. Javier, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I was like trying to do like 9 different things to get stuff
You
going
had a whole
over here.
thing going there. We missed it.
That's right. Yeah. No, I wanted to share. We actually have one question come up, and is from Beast Unicorn, or Unicorn Beast, which way you want to read it. It seems to me that we will be depending on Steeltoe. How much is this thing extensible? Right, like whenever you have a framework, right? And it's great that you had the 3 lines to be able to add telemetry and logging and everything else. But how can I plug in? Is it a provider model, or how does that work?
So that is a great point, right? Because there are realities here, right? This is all give and take as a developer and how I'm choosing to design my thing. You're bringing Steeltoe in, and you're going to be dependent on the Steeltoe libraries. There's not like a Steeltoe instance running out there that's going to bring my application down. It ain't anything like that. It's still your app, completely your app. This is just a library that you brought into it that can help you connect to things. But it's very much up to you. All the components within Steeltoe, the developers try to expose as much configuration as humanly possible, but inevitably, there's going to be some edge situation that may not be right for you. So here's what I offer to you. Your options are to write a resilient, managed connection to a message queue, or put a 2-liner in from Steeltoe and configure the bejesus out of it for what you want to do, right? Which one's going to save you time here? Which one's going to get you coding and get you your microservice onto production faster, right? Steeltoe, I would love to see it in every single .NET microservice out there, but I realize that it's not for everybody. And there is give and takes as far as what kind of dependencies I'm willing to take on to make my life easier versus I need to make my app uber portable and I'm not going to take on 0 dependencies. I'm going to write it all myself. So I still can't hear you, Javier, but you're not on mute. So you've done something else. Nope, still can't hear you.
How about now?
Maybe I'll just, oh, there you go.
Hey, there we go. All right.
Talking about Steeltoe.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, the thing about it is, like, obviously you have to find a balance between what you're trying to accomplish and what you can do, right? To deliver the value for your customers. So this is really great. And obviously, at Steeltoe, like you said, is part of the .NET Foundation. So it's open source, so it's available. So in case you want to know how it all works, there's the source code's available for you to look at it, right?
100%.
Perfect. Great. Well, David, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us at .NET Conf. We are getting Ruben Bond to talk about how we use Orleans at Microsoft. So, David.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. We'll talk to you guys in a bit.